Hello, my name is Robert Beatty. I'm going to be reading this little book of poetry called Being Here by my friend Hal McCartor. Recent Poems of Awakening. Being Here, Poems of Awakening, Hal McCartor. The introduction. These poems are about awakening. Awakening is non-conceptual by its very nature. I quote from my poem, What Can I Say? Being was everywhere. I did not see it. I passed right by on my way elsewhere. I was sure. I was sure I was separate from the world out there, and sure I created all these thoughts, and sure I chose whatever I did. Addressing these illusions is my concern here. I write largely in free verse, eschewing punctuation. The Heron. Quiet, erect, barely visible, at the edge of the upper pond, a great blue heron. Half a dozen staff have gathered at the pond's edge to witness this unusual occurrence. I pass them on my way to the hut in the upper garden, where often I come to write. The garden wall, beside the hut, illuminated by bright gray sky, is a smoky pink, showing gray and ochre water stains that form artful patterns. This morning, the brightest aspect of the garden reclaimed rectangular granite stones, forming garden paths showing care in selection and placement. Granite blocks, perhaps from a failed bank, granted new life, contributing to a tranquility unknown in the world of banking. In perhaps an hour, I will leave the garden and return home for breakfast. Being. I rest on a wooden bench in the arboretum. The hike had been strenuous, perhaps 800 vertical feet. Taken aback by my difficulty a week ago after a longer hike, I am cautious. I stopped where the bridge crosses the creek below the redwood grove. I am embraced by a sense of aliveness of being. How to communicate this precious wholeness, sometimes called ineffable? I hear a bird high in the redwoods calling again, and then again, and occasional footsteps on the gravel path across the creek. Rested, I cross the bridge to ascend the slope into the redwoods. Dandelions. The dandelions invite presence, thousands blanketing the dunes, each blossom as pure yellow as I can imagine. I carry folding chairs to the beach for mothers, watching children at the surf. In mist, a stranger fades rapidly up the beach. Sky overhead shows a hint of blue. A light breeze comes up the coast from the south. The single bird down by the surf looks like a crow. The kids return home for lunch. Out of the gray, someone passes between me and the surf. What I took to be a crow, I find is driftwood. I hear tapping of surf, wave after wave after wave. Watching the surf, I experience oneness. I am not a separate self looking at a world out there, but one with these waves, these mothers, these dandelions. Fall haiku. There are so many I would have liked to thank. The ice cream melted. It rained last night. Autumn leaves cover the yard. I'll make corn chowder. The pen now in hand, the poem's words elusive. A coyote howls. The manual has been missing at my birth. I am an improvisation. 90 is great, while the baling wire and duct tape still work. A rainy fall day, yellow leaves across the ground. I invite her in. What can I say? Being was everywhere. I did not see it. I passed right by on my way elsewhere. I was sure I was separate from the world out there. And sure I created all these thoughts, and sure I chose whatever I did. Then one day, sitting in my living room, I noticed something. A seemingly small thing, just there was no me there watching my experience. All that was here was experience, out loud laughable. How could it be this simple? And so everything changed. I found no personal self separate from the world to choose what I do. No me, no author, no me to author my thoughts. I saw this as it. I am this experience. There's no one here to run the show. Biology and conditioning handle it all. Thoughts occur, behavior happens, preferences are expressed. A separate me pulling the strings is an illusion. Being surrounds us. Few see it. I notice hollyhocks are present and I greet them. I find crows and ferns lounging and being, and I say hello. I look, I see things as they are. Sometimes I am sad to see so much folly. There are times I dip an oar in when I see I might help. Being is always here, whenever I am present. Occasionally love just appears, unexpected, quiet, transient. The enormity of being. What can I say? Self. How is it that I came to believe I can choose this and that? It seems simple looking back. It was just that brain and mind were opaque to me. I could not see what went on there. Thoughts and behavior just showed up. When others held me responsible for my thoughts and behavior, I came to hold myself responsible. I laid claim to them. I took pride in some, guilt in others. And I came to believe that I was this imagined self who authored my life. I took to blaming others when their behavior displeased me. I imagined they too had a self and could have chosen to do otherwise. Self is a concept about who we are, a belief we are separate from a world out there with free choice. To believe you are separate from the world precludes, of course, experiencing oneness with being. Sadly, few who devote their lives to religion or spirituality see through the illusion of a separate self. Let us not confuse this self that is solely in thought with our person. This person is the biology and the social conditioning that we actually are. Nature and God. Early fall, the morning crisp, gentle sounds of water making its way around stones, past logs, over ledges. The log cabin here at the head of the Metolius is where we shared our Thanksgivings with friends decades ago, when the kids were small. I sit in a creaking rocker just yards from the stream. Reflecting, I recall YMCA camp in the coastal redwoods of California. Each morning, 30 10-year-olds gathered in a circle of old-growth redwoods for a story and to sing hymns. The hymns, mostly dreary, but this one I loved. There's a church in the valley by the wildwood, no lovelier spot in the dale, no places so dear to my childhood as the little brown church in the vale. Away from home for the first time, singing this hymn was surprisingly comforting. Our family was occasional church goers. We did not talk of God. One afternoon, seated on a large boulder midstream in the creek that ran through camp, pondering about God, I came to the conclusion that God was a shimmering pool. Here, 80 years later, I muse again about God. It is a quiet autumn morning. I listen to the Metolius River. The stream is shallow here, no more than a foot deep, perhaps 30 feet wide. The surface reflects Black Butte, silhouetted this morning against the cobalt blue sky. Recently, I read the historical novel The Weight of Ink about Baruch Spinoza and a young Jewish woman grappling with his heretical notion that nature and God are one. This took place over 4 centuries ago and led to his eviction from the Dutch Jewish community. He was clear that he was not an atheist. This thought that nature and God are one intrigued me. And I recalled those feelings I had when I sang that hymn about the little brown church in the Vale, a sense of inclusion and belonging. Several years ago, I noticed experience is all I know. There's no separate self here to choose this or that. I am an aspect of one world. Was Spinoza's experience similar? Is this what he had in mind? Spinoza invited me to see nature and God as one, led me to see the world of nature that includes caring. Life and humanity evolved, bringing caring to a world of seemingly insentient matter. This caring expresses itself as nature and nurture, compassion, friendship, love. Again, is this Spinoza's God in nature? I sit here, still my rocker, reflecting, content, listening to the calls of unseen birds seeking mates along the stream bank, to the sound of breeze high in ponderosa pines, and to the occasional splash of salmon returning home to spawn. Haiku at the beach. In silence at dawn, a small bird alights, then leaves, disturbing nothing. Cloudless winter sky, boardwalk, roller skaters, and strawberry ice cream. Enchanted, I watch a wave curl over itself, becoming white surf. A gull surveys me, proud beak and bright white breast. Do I pass muster? The bikini girl waved as she walked by. I put my book down. I am in stitches, sandpipers in unison, challenging the surf. Bluff above the sea, yellow flowers on the breeze, childhood memories. Reflections of sheets billowing on the line, fresh freestone peaches. A cold, sunny day, peeling the potatoes for a delicious soup. 2 hard-boiled eggs, potatoes and mayonnaise, picnic on the bluff. Establishing who is in charge, 2 seagulls are disputing a rock. My peers all gone now. I watch dogs run to and fro in white breaking surf. I laugh at their joy. One dog dives into breakers, another sprints the beach. Sunny winter day, alone with the sea and the restless sandpipers. Autumn. We turn right to the gravel road left at the metal gate and up a steep slope to the road's end. It's a sunny fall morning in the foothills of the Willamette Valley. Friends collect at the meadow in the shade of oaks for the rendezvous. Awaiting us displayed on a table set up by early arrivers, a cornucopia of enticing pastries, fruits, cheeses, and scones, still warm from the oven. We reconnect, chat, eat, gluttony expected. As eating tapers, our host rings the old school bell. We assemble in the gallery. I hold back to garner a last scone. Several each year read stories, recite poems, sing songs, show paintings. Today, among other treats, a reading of Driving Miss Daisy. Monica, our host, created this celebration decades ago. The idea came from a line in a poem, "Art is my necessity." Her vision, delivering "We can all create art," was to bring people together, to spend the day acknowledging our artistic work while broadening our appreciation. Perhaps 50 of us gather every year to celebrate the work of a half dozen on the first Saturday after Labor Day. We break in early afternoon for a potluck lunch on picnic tables shaded by oaks, to be followed today by a Zen flute performance. At our table, we catch up with old friends and get to know a woman in her 60s here for the first time. The simple, haunting flute penetrates the oak woods, breathy, ethereal. All pitch in to clean up, fold the chairs, return the site to nature. We drive home through rolling hills, tended farms, vineyards of the Willamette Valley, rich today with colors of fall. We chat of friends, how they are faring, with silent recognition that our celebration is not just of this beautiful season and our artwork, but of our own personal autumn as a group, as friends, as persons. Awakening. Awakening is extraordinary. It is a unique state, appearing suddenly without warning, often occurring briefly for minutes, hours, or days, and only later becoming sustained. For me, being awake is clearly desirable. I explain awakening to myself in this way. We know each hemisphere of the brain has its own consciousness. When separated surgically, to treat epilepsy, we also see that the effect of a stroke is quite different depending upon which hemisphere is affected. Each side has its own way of apprehending the world. The left divides it to facilitate language. The right assesses it globally. Awareness is always singular. My conjecture is that awakening is right hemisphere consciousness becoming dominant rather than the usual left. Notably, experiencing the world in a holistic way is a central feature of awakening. Certain activities or thoughts may facilitate awakening, but it cannot be chosen. 47 kisses. What is it like to have a wet dream at age 90? And what is it like to kiss your wife 47 times, and then to kiss her 47 times again, and then to fall asleep spoon to spoon? Getty might call it the rebirth of wonder, and I could not agree more. What was it like for her, this awakening of ardor? We talked at breakfast, an intimate conversation. What was it like for her and for me? Unsaid thoughts, unexpressed desires, fears, expectations. This morning we walked a path above the cliffs at Mendocino. Breakers crashing into cliffs below, throwing up huge sheets of white spray. Walking hand in hand, I wonder what life will bring. Perhaps with luck, it might be 63 kisses. Grace. We are here, a free ticket to experience the whole shebang for a limited time. How long? Unknown. The end final, no returns. So what's the story? Well, it seems there's a caveat we just don't get to know. Instead, we watch shadows as in Plato's Clave becoming experts on the interpretation of silhouettes and dark shapes and call it religion. From time to time, as in Plato's allegory, a lone figure escapes to see the light and finds we are not a separate self, but part of this all. This new perspective releases one from the shackles of self-regard and the alienation that it engenders. I call this grace. How is it for me? My family and friends believe they have free choice in disregard of the science of cause and effect. This makes no sense to me. I believe in a causal universe of biology and conditioning that authors my thoughts, directs my behavior. Although I do not believe that I have free choice, I am not a passive observer of the world. I actively participate. Participant playing roles, taught from the cradle that immense in me is this human endeavor, captured in the phrases being brought up and educated. Let me turn a page. How is life different without a belief in my own agency, where I see I am not responsible for what I think or do? Well, it's quite lovely, really. It is to live without blame or guilt or hubris or pride, although my behavior is not directed by biology and conditioning. To live in a civil society, I will, of course, be held accountable for how I behave. The Deschutes. Uninhabited hills, a deep, rich ochre with a touch of cadmium yellow, descend gracefully to the Deschutes River. They sing to me. I sit at the riverbank. Rain threatens, occasional sparse drops. The river surface reflects the ochre hills. Two fishermen, boat moored on a small island by the opposite bank, fly fishing and waders. A large bird, an exquisite long neck, perhaps a heron, surveys the river. The breeze is warm, despite rain threatening. The passion this morning, mostly on my side. She got up, made coffee, brought a camp chair to the river to join me. She confirmed the heron, pointed to where it seems to nest, went back for more coffee. Languid, I sit watching the river drift. The fishermen wade up and down stream. Drops of rain spot my Levi's. The heron flies upstream and now back. Beyond the river, the warm ochre hills bring me back to days before I started school. Unconstrained, I roamed the grassy hills of my childhood. Sadness, pleasure, a sense of freedom. Time flows, reminiscing about a life 80 years ago that led me here today, to these hills, ochre with a touch of cadmium yellow, and to the Deschutes River, as I drift toward the end. Gulls. This morning, a dozen gulls rise in unison on a current of warm air over the Deschutes River. Revolution by revolution, traversing the northern sky, their white wings catch the bright sun in brilliant contrast to deep ultramarine sky. Enchanted, I watch them circle by circle until high in the sky they drift off to the west. Am I too rising, circling and gently drifting off to the west? Well, of course I am. At home, golden summer hills silhouetted against deep blue sky, reflected on the Deschutes. Poplars on the bank high above the river, radiant leaves fluttering in warm breeze, transmitting late afternoon sun, remind me of paintings by Claude Monet. For dinner, we share what some might call vichyssoise. I made the soup earlier in the week. 6 Alaska Gold potatoes, peeled and diced, simmered till soft to the fork. 6 thick slices of bacon cut into small bits. A large onion sautéed in the bacon fat. 3 garlic cloves, 3 tablespoons butter, made into a roux with a half a cup of flour to thicken, 4 cups of chicken stock, 2 cups of milk, 2/3 of a cup of heavy cream, 2/3 of a cup of sour cream, seasoned with 1½ teaspoons salt, 1 teaspoon black pepper, half a teaspoon of ancho chili. We had it hot then. This evening camping, we take it cold. I wish you could taste it. This soup is so good. It's not the soup that is moving me this evening, though, but the wonder of these radiant poplar leaves, fluttering in the breeze, translucent to golden evening sunlight, silhouetted against ultramarine sky, and my feeling of being so utterly at home. About the author, Hal McCartor. I grew up in a middle-class family in a small town in the foothills east of San Francisco Bay. With no aptitude for sports, I preserved a bit of self-esteem in the classroom. I blossomed in my years at Antioch College, a co-op school where we worked alternate quarters at a job in our field of study. At 17, my first job was an OR orderly in a hospital on the west side of Chicago. My reading until then had been Popular Mechanics and the Hardy Boys. My peers had been reading classic novels for years. This was a totally new world for me. I've always had sufficient support to follow my interests. In the 60s, I pursued a career in internal medicine and later psychotherapy. In the late 80s, 3 of us started a company to build massively parallel computers to run neural net algorithms of the type now used to drive cars. I loved creating a language to program it. We succeeded, but alas, we were too early for the market. 20 years ago, I fulfilled my dream of going back to college and became a full-time art student for 5 years. With the encouragement of a friend, I took up writing about 5 years ago. Freud thought dreams should be interpreted. Fritz Perls, a psychoanalyst and former theater director, thought they should be enacted. In the late 60s, I worked on a dream with Perls. What happened dramatically changed my life. If you are interested, this narrative will tell you a good deal about how Fritz Perls worked and about me. I was bicycling down a highway near Half Moon Bay. The highway split. I went inland past a farmyard where goats were humping, and another with a virile stallion. When I said that was all, Pearls asked me to keep going. That is all, I responded. Make it up, he said. I continued on the bike. I found the road blocked by a wooden barricade. Keep going, Pearls urged. Walking through the woods, I found an abandoned campfire, cold black ashes. Keep going, Pearls prodded. I followed the switchback's path, back and forth to the top of a ridge. Pearls again pressed me on. I followed the crest to a mountaintop overlooking the Pacific. So what is it? What is it like there? Pearls asked. Cold and lonely. I looked down on everything, I replied. And then I thought, and reluctantly added, I looked down on people as well. Pearls directed me to go back to where the road divided and see if I wanted to explore the road I had not taken. It led to a small town where people enjoyed each other, sharing food and music and companionship. Pearls asked me if I would like to invite the me on the mountain to join the me here. Moving between two chairs, the me on the mountain and the me in town conversed. Come down from your perch. It's warm and friendly here. No, I worked hard to get here, medical school and all. But it's so cold and lonely. Come join me here. Changing chairs back and forth, the conversation went on. When the me on the mountain finally relented, Pearls asked me to describe my descent. I followed the ridge, describing the switchback path. As I neared the bottom, I started singing. Pearls asked me to sing aloud. In Dublin, fair city, where the girls are so pretty, I first laid my eyes on sweet Molly Malone. And then, with the suddenness of turning a light on in a pitch-dark room, I experienced a world where I was part rather than an observer. I cried and cried. That way of being persisted for days. 2 years later, I left the practice of internal medicine to study Gestalt therapy with Fritz Perls, and I became a psychotherapist. It was decades later that I suddenly experienced a world where this way of being persisted. I am grateful to my wife, Alice, my family and friends, and to the culture I have been born into. I live with Alice in Portland, Oregon. This was Being Here by Hal McCartor. Read by Robert Beatty.